Hey, I'm Kevin Longa, and this is Taste, a documentary series that reveals the true stories of the real people who make our food around the world. During our last episode, we launched our inaugural podcast with Nafy Flatley, where she shared her origin story before opening her Senegalese food business, Longa, here in America. She took us through decades of her life from the villages of Senegal to the cities of New York and San Francisco. And through these years, she had been cooking and evolving what her perception was of the American dream. She started out as a child cooking Senegalese foods and eating fruit from the baobab tree in her grandparents' village. And during this time, American TV shows like Beverly Hills 90210 and Dallas formed her ideas of the American dream. When I was talking with her, it started to remind me of how a lot of shows and movies also shaped how I not only see the world, but also my perception of the American dream as well. I see these movies with protagonists chasing their dream, and with enough passion and heart, they end up succeeding in the end. But let's face it, there is a lot of stuff going on right now that has bubbled to the surface, a whole bunch of doubts that have certainly made this glossy story a little less bright and clear. Essential workers have been treated and compensated poorly for a long time, even before COVID-19 deemed them as quote-unquote essential. And even longer than that, we have treated certain races differently in the US for centuries. It makes me wonder about the idea that America is an even playing field where if you work hard enough, you can succeed. It makes me question whether the American dream is actually real. Like, when I was younger, I was told that if I studied, got good grades, and went to a great college, then I'd be able to slide into success and happiness. Well, I did just that. I worked my ass off in primary and high school, got all A's, no A minuses, and went to one of the top universities in the country. And by the time I graduated, it was the tail end of the economic recession. I had no job, and I had to move back home with my parents. In fact, I lived and filmed in Copenhagen for quite some time, and I learned that Denmark is now the #1 place in the world where you can achieve the American dream. In one of my earlier videos, I discussed my Chinese ancestors' ability to open a restaurant in an all-white town so that they could survive and begin their American dream that I now benefit from. So I wondered, is this story that we Americans tell ourselves still actually possible? Or is it some kind of delusion? That's why I wanted to talk to Nafy Flatley. As someone who immigrated from Senegal to the US, I thought her perspective on the American dream is quite unique. Like me, she had trouble finding work after the 2008 recession. And she talked with her mother, who gave her some advice that connected to her experiences cooking as a child.
She started saying, you know how to make juices, you know how to make food, you know how to talk to people and all that stuff. Why don't we just start making those juices we used to make back home? And here I am, 20-something years later, finding myself using what I've done since I was 7 years old to be what actually is helping me to live the American dream I always wanted to live.
But events like COVID-19 and the recent racial tensions that have been flaring up have definitely put the American dream into doubt for Nafy Flatley as well.
Because in the last few months, to tell you the truth, it's been very difficult for me to take in my kids to bed. We'll talk about all these dreams, we'll talk about all these fun things, but now when I'm taking them in, I cannot even find words.
And she's remaining doubtful until there's real change.
To tell you the truth, the honest truth, that the reason why asking me this question about American dream, it's been, I can't answer it anymore until change happens. And I truly believe that food can bring communities together. This change that we are talking about can happen.
And like me, she believes that food can invigorate communities and nourish people and just bring real structural change to the world and to America as well. So this episode of the Taste Podcast, I talk with Nafy Flatley about the challenges she's faced both before and during COVID-19 as a Black woman small food business owner. Her ideas for how we can change things and how her unique Senegalese food can be a part of that. And before we get started, if you're watching this as a video, you might notice that there's fancy video and B-roll during this introduction I'm giving right now. But once the interview with my guest begins, feel free to put your phone in your pocket and just listen to my interview while you're cooking, walking, or basically doing anything. In fact, that's what I do when I'm cooking. I'll pop open a long form video or podcast and just get lost in an in-depth story. And I encourage you to do the same as you're doing something like cooking. On that note, I first talked to Nafy Flatley about the unique Senegalese foods that she cooks. Often we think about Africa as this one singular place, but it's an entire continent with 54 countries, over 1,500 languages, and a vast terroir, which makes for countless recipes, produce, and foods that most of the world doesn't even know about. And Senegalese food certainly has a unique spot there. In fact, her company is now delivering their handmade Senegalese foods, which I got to try. She told me that she made these dishes for her friends and eventually to the folks at La Cuisine, the incubator program that she has been a part of since 2015, which is where we start part 2 of my conversation with Nafy Flatley.
What would be some of those dishes, those Senegalese dishes that you would share?
Oh, I mean, mafe, which is one of my favorite dishes, which is a Senegalese peanut stew. Yassa, which is kind of like an influence of Senegal in like island life because of the influence of the Caribbeans. It's grilled or baked meat, which could be chicken, it could be lamb, it could be really any kind of meat that you want. You put a lot of Dijon mustard and onions and lime, and then like bell peppers and bay leaves, and just like cook it and marinate it like a day or so, a couple hours, and it just tastes so good. And you put like also, if you want to make it spicy, you put Scotch bonnet and things like that, and then you cook it all together, and it's just this delicious meal that I really love. Also, it's something that you can make really quickly and fast, but it just tastes really good. So I really like that. Yeah. Mm.
And I know that a lot of your foods and your products use a lot of ingredients from your childhood, like the baobab fruit, like tamarind.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little bit about some of the cooking that you're doing now that bring you back to your childhood.
Yeah, when I started cooking, especially when I started doing the prepared meals, I I made a couple of them for some of the Cuisine staff and other people, and they were all saying, "Wow, I've never had this. The taste, the way it tastes, is totally different, but yet familiar." And the reason for a lot of those comments was because I add the ingredients that's known worldwide, that are used everywhere around the world, like tamarind. Anybody that had tamarind, when they try my meals, they'll have that taste in the back of their mind. Or you add ginger to it, and then you will know. I guess maybe the one thing that people might not be familiar with is baobab, but also baobab reminds people of tamarind because the tanginess, the sourness, and the way it's so creamy. I always tell people it's like a mix of almond and pear, of the creaminess and then also the tangy sourness of it. And so coming here, trying to get some of the ingredients that I grew up with and finding them in some market was really great to be able to do that. And then, later on, saying that to make it authentic and to make it really true to Senegalese cuisine, we'll have to import some of the exotic ingredients either from Senegal or some other places. So it kind of becomes a little bit more authentic, I guess, like the word. I don't have to use it all the time, but just to make it be more familiar of a taste. So people, when they try it, if they've been to Senegal, they'll say, "Oh yeah, this is the exact taste of what I've had in San Francisco from this, Senegalese restaurant." Yeah. So yeah, using a lot of these spices just always, takes me back home and makes me feel like, yeah, I'm making this comfort food that always makes me feel good. And then I feel like I really ate a real meal. Usually it's not like an empty meal that's like a fast food that I'll have to eat a ton of it just to be full.
All right. So like tamarind and baobab fruit, it's a bit sweet, but it's also sour. And just like the entrepreneurial journey, it's it's a bit sweet and sour sometimes at the same time. And I know that you've probably faced a lot of challenges. Could you kind of tell me, especially now because COVID-19 has hit the restaurant and culinary industry just so hard, could you kind of tell me some of those challenges both before and during this moment that we're experiencing?
Yeah. Prior to COVID-19, some of the challenges I've always faced since I started the business, without even being a business, was just the fact that, being a woman, a minority, and an immigrant trying to get funding has always been very hard. I'll come in, I'll be all, professionally dressed and talk very eloquently and then show them proof, documents, anything that they ask for. But in the end, it's either a super high interest rate that they offer you, or if it's not that, they just say flat no. And then so having to face,
or they give you lots of forms to fill out.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, all these forms they ask, instead of asking you for only 15, you're gonna end up having 45 to 50 different forms that you have to submit. And for me, sometimes I've done some of them, and then at the end, I'm like, you know what, this is not even worth it. This is too much. It's the interest rate. I'm going to be paying this forever, and this is not the reason why I'm in this business. I just don't want to just get by or break even. I want to make this a generational income, not only for me, but I also want to make it a generational income for people who are going to be working for me, for them also to be able to support their families. I wanted to support my community. I wanted to support myself and anybody that's involved with Teranga, the people that I work with, the local farmers I work with in Senegal, the local farmers I work with here locally in California, because, we import local ingredients, we get local ingredients here in California from farmers. We also import ingredients from Senegal and other exotic ingredients from around the world. We wanted to be able to also support those people. And then if I get an interest rate that's 10-15%, how am I going to be able to do any of those things? So I started just saying, I'm going to count on family and friends. So lucky enough, when I started the business, when I stopped working, I was saving money before, because knowing that my son was going to be born, I started saving a lot of money. And then after I left the job, the money that I get, my last paychecks that I got, put all those together. So that's really what got me started in the business. Like many of us, we start with our own money or family or friends' money, and thinking about going to an institution or a nonprofit not nonprofit organization, but a CDFI, organization to help and support you, hasn't been very easy. And I still, until today, after 6+ years of starting this business, I haven't been able to get any grants, I've got one grant from the city of San Francisco, which was super beautiful and great, but loans, I haven't been able to get a loan that will take me to the next level. A loan that when I get this amount of money, I can hire more people, I can get my own space to do my production, or I can do more events, farmers markets, or hit more local stores in the area, and things like that. I haven't been able to do that. And it's been very hard and challenging to say, why me? Why another friend of mine that I just started a business a week ago, they have a van, they have their own place. They even if they don't have their own place, they are in a commercial kitchen together. They have like 2, 3, 4 company employees that can support them. And I'm still struggling, doing everything myself on my own. Whatever money comes in gets recycled and goes back into the business. Pretty much not even getting an income from your business and then just doing it like that. That's not fair, and that's not the way to go. And so past COVID-19, now those same challenges are happening. And one thing that I was just talking to someone about a couple of days ago was, they've been telling you all these grants that are open and all these loans that are open, but when you click on those links and then you're trying to apply, there is still this racial bias, this racial discrimination that's in those forms. They shouldn't even ask you what ethnicity you are. They shouldn't even ask you what gender you are. For me, we are in a global pandemic. Everybody's going through a similar thing. And why would you're just supporting and helping me? My business exists. Teranga exists. I've been around. You asking me for my business license. You're asking me for any document. I'll show it to you. But why asking me all these personal questions? So when you get your pile of people who applied, you know how to categorize everybody. in different buckets, and then pick where you want to pick who you want to help. For me, everything should be just anonymous, and then you just help anybody no matter what, because everybody right now, especially in the restaurant business or food or package business, need a support, need help. It's not just something that's happening in only one country, it's happening worldwide. And seeing those challenges still continue during this period of time really hurts my feelings still, and it's painful, yeah, to see that and watch.
How would you restructure it? What kind of questions would you want to be asked of you to get more help right now?
For me, the thing I was saying the other day was just like, name of the business, how long they've been there, what location are they open, not open, because during the COVID-19 we know a lot of businesses temporarily closed just because of not being able to sustain themselves if they stayed open. Ask basic questions, and then maybe eventually even ask how much were you making monthly, so at least that will help them figure out how much to give you, so you can keep going onto your keep doing your business, you know. Because if let's say they see that, you know, you are a year old or 5 years old, or and your income is still, because I guess the other thing I'm trying to say is like, sometimes for some businesses that we have right now in the city that are struggling, none of them are hobbies. They are real businesses with registration. Some of them have brick and mortars. Some of them are producing and making all their product from a commercial kitchen and things like that. So seeing all those factors, why don't you just use all those data and saying, okay, you're in business, this is how much you've been making, and then leave it at that. Very simple. It doesn't have to be 20, 30 questions. What are you going to do with what is this money going to be used for? That's a very, I think, honest and good question to ask, because you just want to know and figure out what they're going to do with this money, you know, use this money for. Make it very basic, no more than 5, 10, even if it's 10, but it will be things that are not targeting the businesses, so they can be categorized in places that's not going to be beneficial, or let them have the help or support that they need.
In fact, you know, before we chatted, I learned that you're actually helping feed some frontline workers with your meals right now. And that's what I find just so impressive about this industry, is that even when it's down, even when it's hurting, they go out of their way to help each other and help others. And I think it's actually quite the government could be doing a lot of things to help not only the restaurant industry and the food industry, but also help people. You know, there's a lot of people out there who are hungry right now, and food distribution is a real issue right now, especially considering that a lot of hotels and restaurants are closed and schools are closed. A lot of the food distribution systems are breaking down. And what if governments could use people such as yourself as a way to help distribute food? You know, they give you the money, they give you the resources so that you can temporarily change your business so that you can help not only feed the food that is on your menus, but also help feed people just basic, you know, wholesome, nutritious meals that would be rerouted from, you know, the produce from the farms to the people, directly to the people. You would be a food hub so that people wouldn't have to go to a food bank or anything. They could go to you, and you could get money in the process.
So that's what I was saying to a friend the other day. I was saying, like, you know, I'm not just understanding why, like, my kids, you know, they're home right now, so which is very challenging right now, that they're trying to do a business and then having them be with me, not having childcare and things like that. So I was just saying, like, why are they feeding these kids? My kids don't like to eat the food from the cafeteria, from the school. Why can't we change the system and use restaurants to make delicious meals? When I take my kids to a restaurant on Clement or anywhere on Gary or anywhere in the city or in the Mission, They love the food. They eat it like there is no tomorrow, right? Why can't we have those same exact restaurants that we parents are going and taking our kids to make those meals instead for the schools? The thousands of restaurants every month or on a weekly basis, pick two businesses and say you guys are the one that are going to be delivering snack, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, lunch for these kids for this particular school, and rotate them instead of packaging this food that go to waste. I see so much food being thrown on in these school cafeterias, and it's just hard. It hurts my heart when I see it. And you give it to them, they said, the apple doesn't even taste like apple, mom. I'm like, are you kidding me? And I tried myself, and it's just super watery. Or they get a quesadilla that the cheese doesn't even look like cheese. It's so yellow. You're like, how can this be so yellow? It's like all these different things, and I'm like, why not get the restaurants to be doing that part, and not just make this industrialized food, processed food that end up being wasted, and they think they are putting money and they're helping and supporting, but all this food is actually going to the drain in the garbage.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There's so much waste in our food system and in our schools. In fact, back when I was in high school, I made a food documentary, and I learned that my school was getting its food from a corporation called Sodexo, and Sodexo is a food company that also serves prisons. So basically, we were getting prison food.
Wow.
Yeah, it is pretty crazy. So, Nafy, I feel like you have quite a perspective of the American dream, which we've talked about. And I think that your story is something that really has contributed quite a bit to the community here in San Francisco, and also to La Cocina, the incubator, which you were a part of for many years and are still a part of. And you were included in this book that La Cocina created called We Are La Cocina. And the subtitle of that title is Recipes in Pursuit of the American Dream. So the whole title of the cookbook is We Are La Cocina, Recipes in Pursuit of the American Dream. And what's so unique about this cookbook is that it's not just about recipes. It's not a list of recipes. It's also stories. And it's your story, along with many other stories of the people who are part of La Cocina. And it talks about your American dream. And so my question for you is, what do you think is your American dream? And do you feel like that's changed for you? And what do you hope for the future?
If you ask me like that pre-COVID-19, I would have given you this beautiful, well thought out, or even it just comes naturally. I'll tell you something totally different. I would be like, wow, the American dream, because at the time there was this like drive that I had, but now that drive, that dream that I've had since I landed from that airplane in New York in 1998, although in between there were all these up and downs, like I talked to you about having difficulties getting a financial support to take the business to the next level and all those things, I said, it's life. Nothing is easy in life. But those were challenges that a lot of people, if there could be minority, maybe non-minority that are going through. Those are realities that everybody pretty much can go through, right? And then I can overcome them with different ways. But when it comes to threatening the life of my kids, that if they're male, that most likely their life will be ending up in jail, or they'll end up dying, or things like that. And all I have is these kids that bring me joy that I brought into this world. It freaks me out. And then when you say, that's why I had a hard time answering, to just be honest with you, that's why I had a hard time answering the question about the American dream. Because in the last few months, to tell you the truth, it's been very difficult for me to tuck in my kids to bed. Like I'll be tucking them in, and, pre-COVID-19, and we'll be like, yeah, a couple months, we're going to go to Africa. I'm going to take you guys here, and we're going to do this, or we're going to go to Tahoe, or we're going to go to New York to see your cousins, and then, you guys, when you get older, I'll get you this. we'll talk about all these dreams, we'll talk about all these fun things, but now when I'm taking them in, I cannot even find words. I just say, good night, boys, sweet dreams, I love you. And I just leave it to something very minimal, because I don't want to lie to myself about if there's no change. I don't want this to be a trend where, yes, people are saying, yes, change is going to happen, because we've seen times and times again where people come out, they riot, everybody fights, and the law gets changed in some places, and we go back to normal life, so what we call normal life. But those tortures, those discriminations, those lack of support, those lack of being taken seriously and supported are still there. And this time around, I'm like, is it going to be that trend again? Is it just going to be a trend for a couple of weeks, and then we're going back to that nightmare that we always live, and try to readjust our lives and say, okay, I'm just going to leave it as is and then see how I can get by,
Do you feel like food could play a role in helping make structural, real change?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like I said, my grandmother used to always tell us, when she will cook in our backyard intentionally. She will cook in the backyard. So the food, when she's roasting and doing all these things, it smells in the neighborhood. And then once it starts smelling, all the kids in the neighborhood will come and run to our house, and that's where they'll have dinner, or if it's lunch, that's where they'll have their lunch. Because she always said and felt like food is what brings community. And when you make it good and you're giving it with your heart, and you say, this, I'm making it because I want to give it to you, you're part of it. She used to always say, she will hear kids fighting. You know what she does? She will go in her freezer, get out some popsicles, and stand by the door. She doesn't say nothing until people who are like people fighting, all these people running around, and one kid will turn and see her standing at the door. The fighting is broken. Nobody fights. They stand online. Everybody comes and get their popsicle, smile, happy, no more fights. It's all done. And I truly believe that food can bring communities together, that food can support and help us in a way that people don't even know how big it could help. This change that we are talking about can happen through food. And we can see that it's happening already. But look at how many restaurants have closed their doors, but in the back of their restaurants, making meals for these homelesses in San Francisco that are living in tents. I'm one of them. I am making food for the homeless that are living in tents. Or if I don't do it, I make it for people who are really in need of food right now that can't make it for themselves. We are doing those things, and we're not really looking into getting any money from it. We know we're not making any money. You're not even breaking even. You're even losing money from it. But because of the love and knowing this is going to bring communities together, this is going to help my community, this is going to make people happier, it's going to put a smile on a family or on a person's face. Just that's the best reward that we are actually looking for and trying to get from all these things we are doing. And I truly 100%, 10,000% believe that food can make such a big change in our communities, such a big impact into making things a better and healthier and happier way, if we actually really support and stop asking all these nonsense questions in these questionnaires when we are trying to say that we are supporting them with grants or loans. Yeah.
Right. And something that I was actually I was quite sad to find out was that, the municipal market that La Cocina was going to be creating on Hyde Street in San Francisco, that was set to open in spring. That was going to actually help make a big change, because you were going to be the first all-woman-led market in the entire world.
Yes,
The
absolutely.
entire world, not just San Francisco, not just America, but the entire world. And of course, COVID-19 put that on hold. But, your food is still there. Your entrepreneurial vigor is still there. and you're still making a change. And perhaps that is the American dream. It's the pursuit of happiness. It's not actually being happy all the time, not getting your happy meals all the time and getting sick from that. It's that pursuit of making other people happy through doing the work.
I mean, to answer even that question now again, this way is that maybe the American dream is to create a space where people can actually be welcome, just the teranga way, come in and take their food, their meal, whether it's a dish or it's a juice or it's a bar or anything that we actually offer and produce, making that happen and being able to actually have a space that I can call home, and it's called teranga, that people can walk in and order and grab something. That is the American dream that I'm living for right now and looking forward to making it happen. Senegalese food is not very famous, but I'm hoping to teranga that we can make Senegalese food famous moving forward for everybody to discover and to know how delicious, how tasty and nutritious it is.
Yeah. I think that's a great American dream.
It is. It is a good one. Thank you, Kevin.
You're welcome, Nafy. All right.
Rest of your day.
You too. Bye.
I hope you enjoyed part 2 of my conversation with Nafy Flatley. We learned about some wonderful Senegalese dishes like mafe and yassa, and then we talked about some not so wonderful circumstances that Flatley has had to face as a black woman small food business owner. When she told me about the crazy high interest rate loans that she was offered, I thought, holy cow, it almost sounds like a form of indentured servitude. And when I also heard about the ridiculous forms that she had to fill out in order to get support after COVID-19 hit, I couldn't help but dwell on those forms questions. Like asking about your race and your gender in order to get some small business support, it like makes no sense for me whatsoever. Like, what do those two factors have to do with how a government or institution should determine to support a food business, or any business for that matter? Like, when we talk about systemic racism and even sexism, then you can add those forms and questions to the huge pile. Anyway, despite it all, I was incredibly delighted to hear how optimistic Nafy Flatley is for the future, and how food, and specifically the very healthy and delicious Senegalese foods, can play a role in shaping a better future for America, if not the world. I'll tell you, I ate Nafy Flatley's mafe, which is the Senegalese peanut stew with root vegetables and spices with barberry bell pepper rice and French lentils, and man, I felt satisfied and energized afterwards. I ate it late at night like I normally do. I normally eat my dinners pretty late at night after a long day of editing. And the next day, I still had energy to burn and gas in the tank to go for a 6-mile run. It kind of reminded me of the runs Nafy Flatley talked about in part 1. She would run back in her grandfather's village after eating mangoes and baobab fruit straight from the tree in Senegal. Anyway, if you're in the San Francisco Bay Area, definitely try to get some food or juices from teranga. And if you're out there in the world or around America, try your hand at making mafe, the peanut stew. It's a great dish that'll last for days in the fridge. And like I mentioned at the beginning of part 1 of these podcast episodes with Nafy Flatley, I wanted to share these long-form conversations that I normally have with chefs and food entrepreneurs when I'm researching one of my documentary stories. These conversations can often last a couple hours to several days. In fact, my raw, unedited conversation with Flatley lasted 2 whole hours, which I ended up having to cut down for time. But let me know if you prefer to hear the raw, unedited version of my conversations going forward. They might last a couple hours, but they're chock full of stories, information, recipes, and foods. And since this is also the first podcast that I'm creating, I'd love to hear what you think of this in this video's comment section and as a review on Apple Podcasts. I'm kind of testing out this format, and I think it would be a great platform to help undiscovered chefs and food entrepreneurs share their stories. On that note, if you know of a story that I should share here, then let me know in the comments or DM me on Instagram. And as always, I'm still working on post-production of the first season of Taste with Europe. So if you'd like to get access to that, then you can sign up in the link in the description or in the show notes of this episode. And, well, until next time, thanks, eat well, and stay safe.